lawyer is aware of this provision but have chosen to disregard it and instead engage in a media trial, presenting untested evidence to create an impression of guilt in the minds of the public about people this government accused of having engaged in acts of corruption. This is an irregular act. This is not how the fight against corruption has been carried on as far as this Fourth Republic is concerned. Many of you are aware that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration prosecuted some of the NDC people and jailed them. But those actions leading to their persecution and holding them accountable was not a media activity. Some of those persecutions, people criticize us and as though that we were not doing anything. It was only because those actions that needed to be taken to hold people accountable was taking place in the courts room rather than in the media. And we expect this government to do so, and we are willing to support them in every way possible to undertake the prosecution of corruption according to law in the courtrooms, not in the media. But what we have seen so far from them is a deliberate act of inciting the public and trying to incite public sentiment against the New Patriotic Party by creating these media events to talk about people's guilt, to talk about evidence, rather than we need to bring to your attention because perhaps it didn't have enough evidence, or the evidence it has against these individuals that it claims have conducted acts of corruption, that either the evidence they know cannot stand the test of scrutiny in the courtroom, or they simply are engaged in a political persecution to vilify individuals and create disaffection for the New Patriotic Party. And so the question we ask, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Attorney General is not going to court, but rather going to the media. Why is that? Ladies and gentlemen, the answer to these questions are one of two possibilities. It is either the Attorney General lacks confidence in the supposed evidence he has to withstand the rigor of trial in the courtroom, or that the media trial is part of the government's grand agenda to defame its political opponent, being the New Patriotic Party. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that it is the latter. That it is the latter, perhaps both, that the National Democratic Congress, the John Dramani Mahama administration is engaged in a plot, one, to defame the New Patriotic Party because he knows that the evidence he has cannot stand the test of any scrutiny in the courtroom, and so it results to a media campaign to create disaffection for the New Patriotic Party. And we believe that that is evidence of his lack of commitment to the fight to reduce corruption in his government and also to hold former government appointees accountable. As I indicated earlier, the government is not interested in combating corruption, but in persecuting and sowing seeds of disaffection against the New Patriotic Party. This is why the government has positioned persons like Richard Jakpa and others in key positions within the national security apparatus to use all means necessary to intimidate, to harass, and humiliate Ghanaians with impunity. Ladies and gentlemen, that would not wash. That attempt would not wash. Because Ghanaians will judge this government based on its performance and not how well it has defamed its political competitor, and in the process undermine the rights and liberties of Ghanaians. The performance of this government so far has been disappointing, given the 2025 budget and the significant deterioration in the fight against illegal mining, Galamsey. Let's talk briefly about the 2025 budget. The 2025 budget is disappointing, and I'm sure all of you will agree, despite the generous contributions they enjoyed from the National Economic Dialogue. President Mahama campaigned to establish a 24-hour economy. And all of you are aware, we stood here many times to tell you that was a scam, but somehow it fell through the cracks, and then we voted for them. Today, with the evidence from the 2025 budget, you will agree with me that it's indeed a scam in the making. The 2025 budget, as you will agree, made no provisions for the implementation of the 24-hour economy. The only comment we hear about it is that sometime along the line, the finance minister will bring a policy proposal to Parliament for consideration about the 24-hour economy. There is no allocation in the budget for it. The government's priorities in the 2025 budget clashed with the expectations of Ghanaians, which is evident in the government at the Jubilee House, exceeding the allocations made combined for the following programs, shall I say, flagship programs for the government. One, the Agriculture for Economic Transformation. A total of 1.5 billion was allocated for that program. The National Apprenticeship Program, a total of 300 million allocated. The National Coders Corps, this is supposed to take care of some 1 million Ghanaians. A total of 100 million was allocated. You've heard about the Jumera program. A total of 100 million is what they allocated. And a few women amongst us this afternoon. The Women's Development Bank, a measly 51.3 million is what they allocated. All this put together is less than what the president allocated for his office. For the compensation, I'm not talking about anything else. There are many things that they have allocated for the Office of Government Machinery. But this is just for compensation of a handful of people at the Jubilee House. 2.7 billion. More than what they have allocated combined for these flagship programs that they said they were going to do. So from here, you can see that the government's priority is not the good people of our country, who they canvassed, whose votes they have obtained, on the back of a promise that they are coming to create a certain Ghana with a certain program of resetting to a better place. But then now we see clearly that they are resetting us backwards, and we all have to try and fight to resist that. It is not done yet. I have seen some efforts across the society, women especially, who are intent on fighting back to see that these promises, especially the promise on the Women's Development Bank, is realized. But I can tell you that with this allocation, there's very little that you can hope for. So ladies and gentlemen, how can this be, as I indicated earlier, with this allocation and the promise they made to us? There's a clear mismatch in terms of the commitment to deliver on these promises. The budgeted amount for compensating a small group of people, as I indicated, who are working around the president, is higher than the allocation made to impact the lives of millions of young people and Ghanaians at large. Many have criticized this misplaced priority in the 2025 budget. The Chief Executive of Agri-Impact, Mr. Daniel Fahine Akwe, a significant stakeholder whose view from his criticism suggests to me that he was not consulted, his views were not sought, even though the government is going on a spree, creating the impression that they are a very consulting government. But a stakeholder such as this has not been consulted. And he has come out to criticize the allocation for the agricultural sector as insufficient. Others, including the AGI, have also criticized this budget. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that the budget is at variance with the expectation of the people of Ghana. The Women's Bank, as I said, also suffer another faith where the entire allocation for it is less than what has been allocated to the Lone Ranger Office, the Office of Government Communication, that sees a whopping 78 million Ghana cedis compared to the 51 million allocated for the creation of the Women's Bank to affect the lives of millions of women in our country. One potentially positive aspect of the 2025 budget, I must say, is the elimination or the removal of the 10% betting tax and the e-levy. By the way, something that we had scheduled to repeal if we had won the election. I tell you, the dissatisfaction with the 2025 budget is widespread. And so it's not a thing that you will say that it's a new patriotic party that is opposed to it or is not happy with it, but it is widespread. And as I've indicated, in the days ahead, we'll be engaging in conversations to do with the budget, and we are sure that Ghanaians will get to understand that indeed we have made the wrong choice in selecting the NDC and not the NPP. But for now, let me turn my attention briefly to the fight against galamsey. The fight against galamsey has significantly deteriorated. Just before the election, you heard calls in civil society, championed also by the National Democratic Congress. The president now, I've been seeing on platforms saying that Ghanaians voted for us, and so therefore we must resolve the problem of galamsey. Some have called around that time for a state of emergency to be declared. The NDC participated in that conversation and created the impression that we're not willing to do much about the fight to curb galamsey. But today, you will agree, as I tell you, that this government lacked the commitment to fight galamsey. And what exacerbation we're seeing in galamsey around the country is as a result of the lack of commitment of the John Dramani Mahama administration. All our forest cover to galamsey. A situation when you ponder should cause a shiver in your spine, because you have seen recently operatives and party members of the NDC actively preventing task force or security forces detailed to fight corruption and protect our forest cover. The NDC, ladies and gentlemen, is complicit in the astronomical growth in illegal mining in our country because they campaigned actively in galamsey areas with coded promise, which translate to mean that we will allow the boys to galamsey anything to fight it. With the NDC government in power now, with militants to protect them, and the government cannot do anything about it besides talk. You heard recently they commissioned some blue water guards, which blue water guards are not primary fighters. They are complementary to the fight, but then they are presenting them as their key proposition to fight galamsey. And the individuals you see not exude that confidence or have the stature or the readiness to be able to combat or engage any galamsey or galamseyers who are wielding guns and machetes with the people we saw in the video who they have trained to be the Blue Water Guards. And as I indicated recently, this Blue Water Guard situation is not new. We have the river wardens trained and deployed somewhere in 2022, 2023. And so it's not a new thing they are doing. It is not the panacea to resolving the galamsey situation. It's complementary, and the NDC is merely just talking about it. The real work they must do today is to be able to get security people to go out there and tell their party people to stand down. And all the people they have promised that they will allow to galamsey to stand down so that our rivers and our forests can be saved from the ravages of their acts. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, the Ofin Shelter Belt Forest Reserve is infested with galamseyers who recently attacked and injured Forestry Commission Rapid Response Team members. In the Brim North District, several forests have been overtaken, namely the Chenchemso and the Jari forest in Equias. This was just days ago, about 2 days ago. We've had these activities recorded. Additionally, the Tano Enua forest in Awin, the Asenyano Forest River, and the Jimra Forest Reserve in Kawiya District have also been taken over by galamseyers. Ladies and gentlemen, the lists of our forests that are being raped by these NDC galamseyers who have been emboldened by the president's overtures in the campaign is just astonishing. And this is an unprecedented situation. The government must use every necessary resource to regain control of the situation. One of the key, ladies and gentlemen, one of the key actions in this direction is the revocation of LI 2462. The president promised he would do this in the campaign. We want to remind him that he must do that. In making this comment, let me quickly commend the Media Coalition Against Galamsey led by Dr. Ken Ashigbe, our brother Erastus Asaridonko, and other civil society organizations that are engaged in ensuring that the fight against galamsey is brought under control since this government took over and he has taken a turn for the worse. President John Dramani Mahama, using the galamsey fight in the 2024 campaign, stated he will repeal LI 2462 to end mining in our forest reserves. However, as president, he has gone back on his promise to revoke the legislative instrument and instead has offered to amend parts of the law which takes away the president's power to approve applications for mining in forest reserves. So this is a tokenist approach which does not end mining in our forest reserve, and given the rate at which the NDC operatives are taking over our forest, under John Dramani Mahama, we are likely to lose the vast majority, if not all, of our forest cover. Ladies and gentlemen, amending the instrument will not suffice, considering, as I just said, the rate at which the forest covers or forest reserves are being attacked with armed protection